Two-tier policing is something that has been a talking point on the British right for a while now. I'm trying to think when it started, when I first noticed it. It's probably been a couple of years. No, it couldn't have been, could it? Because they wouldn't have talked about it when the Tories were in government. So it had to have been in the last year. I think it came with the advent of the Labour government. See, it's really hard to remember these things, actually, because everything's so insane in British politics. So it's very difficult to keep track of when things started and when you first started noticing something. But yeah, thinking about it, it had to have been when the Labour government came in. The idea of two-tier policing being that there's one set of rules essentially for the left, one set of rules for the right. The right are punished for things that the left aren't punished for, and thus we get two-tier policing. A separate set of rules, in essence, depending on your politics. This is something I dismissed for a very long time myself. I thought of it as being a sort of online right talking point. And I just thought that it was people sort of cherry picking certain things. You know, when a right-wing person had been done fairly badly and then taking a really egregious example of someone on the left getting off with something, or taking sort of the worst elements of the British justice system when, you know, a paedophile or someone gets off with a slap on the wrist or nothing, or gets set free, and then someone who writes a tweet gets a prison sentence, all that sort of stuff. And I sort of thought all they're doing is they're just taking they're just cherry picking in order to make a point. But I've started to think, one, that it isn't actually completely spurious, this idea of two-tier policing. You look at something like Kneecap saying that, you know, up Hezbollah, up Hamas, and waving a Hezbollah flag, and nothing really happens. They are just sort of, that whole thing is dropped. And Lucy Connolly gets a 31-month prison sentence for a tweet. Now, I'm not going to go into that here again. I did this on a previous video. If you want to go watch it, it's the one that's about free speech, so you can go watch that if you want more on this. I don't want to get into that because I know the whole thing. I had it with that video. People on the left saying what Lucy Connolly did can be in no way compared to saying up Hezbollah at a gig. One's artistic, one's obviously just hateful, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you're trying to cover for right-wingers, etc., etc. And then people on the right saying Lucy Connolly did nothing, it was just a tweet, what's the big deal? Whereas, you know, something like what Kneecap did or Bob Villan at Glastonbury, that's obviously incitement to violence. Those people should be in prison. I'm of the opinion that none of them should. And that's really where I'm going to come to with my main point, having done that introduction to two-tier policing. I actually, while I think that I understand the idea from the right and understand what the right is trying to get to, I don't think they're quite correct. I don't think there is a two-tier policing issue in Britain. What I think is we have a multi-tier prison system, justice system, policing system that makes no sense and is increasingly nonsensical. And that is in fact worse, because a two-tier system could be fairly easily fixed, right? So if you got a two-tier system, you just say, well, the way we're treating these people, we will now treat everyone, right? Actually fairly easy to fix. I think what we've got is something much, much worse, which is a criminal justice system that increasingly is nonsensical, bizarre, out of kilter, and not really fit for purpose. And the example I'm going to make, the thing that really inspired me to make this video, was something that happened to a group of people on the left, in fact. So yesterday, 29 people were arrested in central London for supporting Palestine Action. So Palestine Action have this week, or was it last week, become a proscribed terrorist group. This is after Palestine Action broke into an RAF base and did some damage to fighter jets. That's basically why, that's what led to the group becoming a proscribed terrorist group. Anyhow, you had some mostly older lefties, the type of people who will tend to come out for things like Rejoin marches in London, and they were standing there with signs, you know, something Free Palestine Action or something, and they got arrested on terror offences. Now, this bothers me for several reasons. One is my basic free speech purity and the idea of, is this really why we have terror laws? in this country. Surely the point of having terror laws and prescribing terrorist groups is because the end goal is to protect the British people, right? To make sure that we make it much harder for terrorist groups to operate and create terror. That's what we're doing. That's the end goal, right? That's why we have these laws. And so I think some sort of common sense should apply to this, particularly given how all over the place this is. Great example is going back to kneecap, right? So they fly a Hezbollah flag, okay, on stage and say, "Up Hezbollah," in front of thousands of people. I'm assuming thousands of people. I mean, given how big kneecap is, I'm assuming their gigs have more than 1,000 people at them. Maybe I'm wrong. Even if I'm wrong, though, hundreds of people, right? A large group, a large gathering, we can all agree on. And it's a Hezbollah flag and Up Hezbollah. Now, Hezbollah is a prescribed terrorist group in the United Kingdom, right? I don't see how you can argue that a little old lady holding a Free Palestine Action sign that should be punished with an arrest and a possible conviction for terrorist offences, and kneecap get nothing. I want to go back and I want to stress here, I don't think kneecap should have been arrested, okay? But what I'm saying is, this comes down to the two-tier, multi-tier, the criminal justice system's all over the place problem. If Hezbollah don't, if Hezbollah, slip of the tongue there. If kneecap don't get done for the Hezbollah flag and the Up Hezbollah chanting at a gig in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, why does the little old lady just sat there with a Free Palestine, a Palestinian Action placard? Why does she get arrested? You have to agree that it makes zero sense. It doesn't make any sense at all, right? If the whole idea is you cannot show any support whatsoever for a prescribed terrorist group, including being a little old lady with a little sign, right? How are kneecap in prison? I don't understand. That makes no sense to me at all. And again, I want to stress, I don't think kneecap should be in prison, and I don't think the little old lady with the Palestine Action sign should be there. Again, some of this should just come back to common sense. Is the little old lady with the Palestine Action sign, is that going to lead to further terrorist offenses? Is that going to inspire terrorist events to take place? I think we should have a pretty high bar for that, right? The whole point of these terror laws, I keep coming back to this, but it's so important, is you prescribe them so that no one can be a member, right? And that as soon as they are caught doing anything and any sort of planning and conspiring to do any sort of terrorist activity, they can be arrested for that. That's why the terror laws exist, not to arrest little old ladies with placards. I don't think this seems so common sense to me that it astounds me that we even have to talk about this. It's incredible to me, right? And the reason I want to bring up the Palestine Action thing is, again, this is happening on the left. The inconsistency isn't just a matter of people on the right are getting done, people on the left aren't. We're now seeing people on the left getting done. It's all over the place. It doesn't make sense. No one knows what the rules are. Somehow you can't be a little old lady with a little sign that happens to have Palestine Action. You can't do that. That little old lady's going to prison, boy, for a while, right? But I can rock up at a pro-Palestine march in London that seems to happen almost every weekend. I can rock up with a Hezbollah flag, and I can start shouting, "Up Hezbollah! Hezbollah, destroy the West! Jihad!" I can just do all that in plain sight of the cops, and nothing will happen. Again, what are the rules here? What are we trying? What is this trying to achieve? What is the criminal justice system in Britain trying to achieve? Anyway, I want to make this a brief video, so I won't go on too much longer here. My point really is the right are jumping on this two-tier justice system thing because they're trying to make a pattern out of nonsense, basically. And I get what they're trying to do, because they are looking at the people that they think should not be involved in the criminal justice system just for putting out tweets or doing whatever, right? And saying this is completely unfair, because they're right that those people shouldn't be facing criminal censure. I agree with them on that. I think that where they've got it wrong is it isn't just that. It's that the criminal justice system has become so broken that none of it makes any sense whatsoever anymore. And we're now at a point where it feels like the police are spending all their time on things like what people are posting on social media or what little old ladies have on their signs in central London, instead of going, you know what, maybe we should like tackle burglaries. Let's get on top of that. Let's just put the tweets aside for just until we get the burglaries under control, or the murders, or people getting mugged in central London. Just let's sort that stuff out. Let's get it so that actually, if you steal a bike, right, in a city or town centre in Britain, you have a very good chance of facing criminal censure. You have a very good chance of being arrested and actually being prosecuted. Why don't we sort that out? Let's sort that crap out. And then maybe if we've got time, let's move on to the tweets and the little old ladies with the signs and see how we feel about it then. But maybe park that stuff, guys. Maybe the police should just park that stuff until they sort out what most normal, rational people would see as the actual crimes that are going on in our society. Huh? Look, whether you're on the right or the left or the center or wherever you are, I would really struggle to see how you would disagree with me on this point, right? That it's just the criminal justice system in Britain, it just doesn't make any sense, and people are getting pissed off about it, and they're annoyed. I'm annoyed that 29 people got arrested, right? And I'm saying, like, I don't like Palestine Action. I think they should be a terrorist group, okay? So that's where I sit on that. But the idea that, oh, well, okay, because we've done that, now what we need to do is arrest the little old lady. No, I don't think so. I think that's really stupid. I think it's really, really idiotic. And it makes the police, it just makes them look insane. When there's so much petty crime that goes on in British cities now, right? And again, I don't want to get carried away with this, like, there's this whole narrative on the right that London's becoming like Afghanistan or whatever. It isn't. I've done another video about this. London's lovely. I will agree, though, that petty crime is getting a bit out of hand. Things like, you get your bike stolen, forget about it. I mean, there's no point in going to the cops. And people will just steal bikes in broad daylight. They will just come with like a bunch of whatever, wire cutters, and just and take off with a bike. Because what's going to happen to them? Nothing. There's no arrests on this. You steal a bike around, I live in South London. You steal a bike around here, you can just go on Gumtree and sell the thing. You could even put stolen bike, please buy. And nothing would happen to you. The police would do nothing about that. And so, do you see what, this is the point, is when people see this petty crime just go completely unpunished and then nothing happens over and over and over again, and people can become victims of it over and over and over again. And then some little old lady gets arrested for holding a sign. You just kind of think this system is broken and no longer actually functions. So anyway, sorry. To close, I don't think we have a two-tier justice system. I think we have a 18-tier justice system or something. I would have to sit down and think about how many tiers there are, because none of them make any sense. And it's just lucky if you happen to... Kneecap are just lucky that they're in some tier that somehow the criminal justice system goes, well, can't touch that. And the little old lady is somehow in... she's unlucky that she's in one of the tiers where they go, let's throw the book at that. Even though none of it makes any sense, and anyone with any common sense trying to disentangle it and explain it would not be able to do it. Anyway, I'm Nick Tyrone, neoliberal centrist dad. Thank you for watching this to the end. If you have done, please like this video. It really helps. Subscribe to the channel. That also really helps. And watch my other videos, and I'll see you soon. Bye.